Have you ever suspected someone you loved was hiding a secret so dark it could shatter everything you believed about them? I never imagined it could happen to me. Not with him. Not with the man I trusted more than anyone in this world. But that night, everything I thought I knew came crashing down like a house of cards. It started with little things, tiny details that I tried to ignore at first. The late nights he claimed were extra work, the faint smell of perfume that was not mine, the sudden defensiveness when I asked simple questions. I swore I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But deep down, a voice in my head whispered that something was wrong. Something very wrong. I wanted to confront him, to scream and demand the truth, but I held back. I waited, I watched. I learned to read the signs, the way he shifted in his chair, the way his eyes flickered when I walked into the room. Every lie left traces, little cracks in the perfect image he projected. And man, you have no idea how painful it is to watch someone you love hide pieces of themselves, especially when those pieces are someone else. One evening, he came home later than usual, claiming he had to meet a client. I stayed quiet, pretending not to notice the fatigue in his eyes or the faint lipstick on his collar. I had been quietly gathering evidence for weeks. Screenshots, messages, everything. I was building a silent case, not for the world. Not even for my friends, but for myself. I needed proof. I needed to see the truth without his lies coating it. When I finally opened his phone, I felt my heart twist. There they were, messages, photos, conversations with someone I had once trusted like a sister. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. I stared at the screen, shaking, unable to breathe. And yet, strangely, I felt a sense of calm. It was as if all the chaos in my head settled, because now I had clarity. I had the truth. I didn't call him. I didn't confront him immediately. I sat there for hours, scrolling, reading every detail. I watched as the web of lies unraveled before me. I saw plans he had made without me, promises he had broken, and moments he had stolen. And in that silence, I made a decision. I would not be the one who begged, cried, or pleaded. I would be the one who controlled the outcome. The next few days, I acted normal. I smiled, cooked his favorite meals, even laughed at his jokes. I wanted him to believe nothing had changed. Meanwhile, I continued collecting every shred of evidence, documenting his every lie, every betrayal. I even went as far as saving conversations from social media accounts I had never touched before. Every screenshot, every timestamp, every detail was a weapon. Then came the moment when I knew he would slip. He left his laptop open one night while I accidentally walked by. On the screen, a message popped up from her. It was casual, flirty, cruelly familiar. I took a photo. I saved it. And in that instant, I realized how powerful silence could be. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is patience. Weeks passed, and he continued in his little bubble, thinking I was oblivious. He smiled, kissed me, told me he loved me, completely unaware that I held the ultimate truth in my hands. I started telling small lies, planting tiny seeds of doubt about him without ever revealing I knew. I made him sweat just slightly, watching his paranoia grow as he noticed subtle changes in my behavior. The night I confronted him, it was quiet. There were no screams, no tears from me, just calm. He had been in the living room, casually scrolling his phone, probably thinking about the other woman. I walked in, my phone in hand, and I simply asked, "Do you want to explain this?" I showed him everything, one by one, messages, photos, timestamps, every single betrayal documented. He froze. His face went pale. I could see the guilt and fear mix in his eyes, but I said nothing else. I let the silence fill the room, letting the weight of his actions sink in. And then he started to babble, to apologize, to explain, but I cut him off gently. "I am not interested in your excuses," I said. "I am only interested in the fact that you thought you could lie and hide this from me." I could see him crumble, not just from fear of losing me, but from the realization that I had played this perfectly. I had waited, I had collected, and I had controlled the moment. And in that control, I found power. I realized that revenge is not about making someone hurt. It is about reclaiming your own strength, your dignity, your life. He tried to reach out to me, to plead, to manipulate, but I had already decided. I changed the locks, I blocked his accounts, and I informed him that our marriage was over. Every call he made went unanswered. Every attempt at persuasion was met with silence. And with each passing day, I felt lighter, freer, more in control than I had felt in years. The most shocking part? He never expected my calm. He never expected that I could watch, wait, and strike without losing my composure. He thought anger, tears, and confrontation were the only paths to revenge. But true power, true satisfaction, comes from patience, observation, and strategic action. In the following weeks, I started rebuilding. I took my energy and redirected it. Career, friends, personal growth. I allowed myself to feel the sting of betrayal, but not let it consume me. I found joy in small victories, in waking up knowing I had taken my life back. And every time I remembered him, I smiled, not from hate, but from triumph. And here is the ultimate truth I learned. People who betray you rarely expect silence, strategy, and control. They expect drama, tears, and confrontations. They never see it coming. When you quietly prepare your path to freedom and let their own lies trap them. I wish I could tell you that healing was instant. That revenge erased every scar, but it does not. What it does is give you power, agency, and the satisfaction of knowing that you will not be a victim. You decide the rules, you decide the ending, and that choice itself is a kind of justice no one can take from you. Sometimes, the hardest part is watching someone who hurt you realize that you are untouchable, not because of meanness, but because of strength. I held the cards, I controlled the narrative, and in the quiet aftermath, I found something far greater than revenge, myself. And as I look back now, I realize that betrayal, while painful, also revealed a truth I had long forgotten. I am stronger than any lie, any deceit, any person. And in that strength, I found my peace, my freedom, and a life untouched by the shadows of his betrayal. So when people ask me how I survived, how I overcame, and how I got my life back, I tell them this. The moment you stop being a victim, the moment you reclaim your power, you no longer need to fight with anger. You fight with strategy, patience, and unwavering control. And that, my friends, is the ultimate revenge. After I finally confronted him, I thought the worst was over. But the reality was far more complicated. He didn't just feel shame. He felt anger, confusion, and desperation all tangled together. He called me, texted me, even showed up at my door, thinking he could twist my heart with apologies, tears, and promises. I opened the door once, just long enough to look him in the eyes, and I saw the full weight of his guilt reflected back at him. He was a broken man, not because I wanted him to be, but because he had dug his own grave. I remember sitting on my couch that night, phone in hand, thinking about how fragile trust really is. One person's choices can shatter a life, and one moment of clarity can change everything. I had a clear choice. Let him manipulate me again, or finally close the chapter and move on. I chose the latter. I started by cutting off every line of communication. I blocked his numbers, his emails, and even his social media accounts. It felt like lifting a weight off my chest, like reclaiming my air, my space, my identity. But I did not stop there. I knew the woman he had cheated with was still in the picture. Probably smug, probably thinking she had won. I needed to be careful, patient, and smart about the next steps. I began gathering evidence to protect myself legally. I documented every interaction he had tried to force with me, every threat, every attempt at manipulation. I met with a lawyer who explained what I needed to secure my life and finances. At the same time, I began to rebuild my home, my sanctuary, in a way that was just for me. No traces of betrayal could remain. Every corner, every room, every moment spent in that house became a symbol of my power, my independence. There was a strange kind of satisfaction in knowing that he would never fully control me again. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to cry. I didn't need anyone else to witness the collapse of his lies. I had done it all quietly, methodically, and with perfect precision. And that, I realized, was the cruelest revenge of all, one that he couldn't anticipate, and one he could not undo. I also started sharing pieces of my story, not in public, but with close friends, my confidants, people who could support me. I learned that talking about betrayal does not weaken you. It strengthens you if done carefully. Hearing myself articulate my pain, my resilience, my plans, it gave me clarity. It gave me confidence that I had survived the storm and that nothing, not even him, could shake me again. As the weeks passed, I began to notice subtle shifts in his behavior. He tried to approach my friends, my colleagues, anyone he thought could influence me, but I had already fortified my world. Every attempt he made at manipulation was blocked, ignored, or neutralized. I felt a strange sense of pride in the control I had regained over my life. It was not about making him suffer anymore. It was about ensuring I would never be vulnerable again. Then came the most shocking twist. One day, I received an anonymous message from someone claiming to know the other woman. The message included screenshots of her admitting she had never intended to be with him long term and that she had used him for her own gain. At first, I felt a rush of anger. Why should I care? But then I realized this was proof of what I had always suspected. Betrayal often begets betrayal. People who lie and cheat live in webs of deceit that eventually collapse under their own weight. I decided to respond, not out of malice, but to ensure that truth was acknowledged. I confronted her calmly, directly, and without emotion. I told her exactly what I knew, what he had done, and what she had contributed to. She tried to justify herself, tried to shift blame, but I held my ground. I let the weight of honesty crush the illusions she had created. It was not revenge for her, it was accountability. And in that moment, I realized that holding myself above the chaos gave me power far beyond anger. In parallel, I rebuilt my life. I reconnected with passions I had set aside during the years I had invested in him. I traveled, I took courses, I spent time with people who truly cared for me. Every step was deliberate. Every choice a declaration that I would not be defined by betrayal. My self-worth no longer depended on his validation, and that was the most liberating feeling in the world. Months later, he tried to contact me one last time. His messages were frantic, pleading, trying to manipulate sympathy, but I had mastered the art of silence. I did not respond. I let him stew in the consequences of his own actions. There was no dramatic confrontation, no final fight, just quiet, deliberate closure. And that quiet was louder than any scream, any argument, any public humiliation could have been. I realized something crucial. The most devastating power you can have over someone who betrayed you is to live well, to thrive, and to be unshaken. They will watch, they will resent, they will feel the weight of their own choices while you flourish. And there is no sweeter revenge than a life reclaimed, a peace restored, and a heart intact despite everything that tried to break it. As time went on, I even found love again, not immediately, not recklessly, but in someone who respected trust, honesty, and mutual care. The contrast between past betrayal and present loyalty made me value my own judgment, my own instincts, and the patience I had cultivated. I was no longer the woman who waited silently in pain. I was the woman who acted with precision, who protected herself and who refused to be a victim. Looking back, I can say with certainty that betrayal taught me lessons I would not have learned otherwise. I discovered the depths of my resilience, the power of strategic silence, and the unshakable strength of reclaiming your life from someone who tried to destroy it. And perhaps most importantly, I learned that revenge is not about hurting someone else. It is about restoring your own dignity, rewriting your own story, and rising above the chaos they created. By the time the year ended, I had severed all toxic connections, secured my home, and rebuilt my personal and professional life. Friends noticed the change in me, the confidence, the glow of someone who had survived a storm and come out stronger. Every glance I gave in the mirror reminded me that I had not only survived betrayal, I had mastered it. I had transformed my pain into power, my anger into clarity, and my heartbreak into liberation. Even now, I can hear echoes of his failed attempts at manipulation and remember how silent patience, evidence, and calm decisiveness were my strongest allies. I often think about how different my life could have been if I had reacted impulsively, if I had confronted him in anger, if I had let him see me fall apart. But I did not. I waited, I acted, I reclaimed everything, not for him, not for anyone else, but for me. And that, my friends, is the final lesson. True power is quiet, deliberate, and unstoppable. True revenge is living, so fully and so intentionally, that the person who tried to destroy, you can only watch as you thrive. Betrayal might have knocked me down, but it did not break me. In fact, it made me unbreakable. So if you are listening to my story, if you have ever been betrayed, manipulated, or hurt by someone you trusted, remember this. You are stronger than their lies, smarter than their deceit, and capable of reclaiming your life in ways they will never anticipate. Silence, patience, strategy, and self-respect are your allies. And when you emerge from the storm, you will do so with power, peace, and dignity intact, leaving betrayal and those who perpetrated it far behind. I look back now at the woman I was before the discovery and the woman I have become, and I realize something profound. Betrayal, though painful, was the catalyst for my transformation. And sometimes the most beautiful victories are those that are invisible, subtle, and deeply personal. No one else needs to witness your rise. It is yours and yours alone. Because in the end, surviving betrayal is not about revenge, confrontation, or spectacle. It is about reclaiming yourself, rewriting your life, and living with a strength so undeniable that no one could ever take it from you. And that, more than anything, is the victory that lasts forever.